You've had people believing against you, people telling you you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, you're going to lose it all. That's a stupid idea, kid. He'll shoot your eye out. Remember that movie? Well, I had all that too. And it almost did get me to quit. It almost made it so that I didn't continue on to opening my skateboard, snowboard shop called Fat Man Board Shops. Too many people were telling me it's a bad idea. You're going to risk it all. You're going to lose it all. It's never going to work. And you know, when too many people tell you something, you start to conform to their failed ideas. You start to think of yourself, yeah, well, what if I do fail? Wow, what if I lose it all? Wow, what if this doesn't work? We start to conform to those failed realities, those failed dreams, those failed journeys. Because that's all it is, folks. The people that tell you can't do something is because they couldn't do it, because they failed, because they didn't go after it, because they weren't willing to do what everybody else was unwilling to do. That's the internal journey, folks. Crew Jones in that movie, Rad, he created his destiny. I created my destiny against all adversity. You create your own destiny, or you conform to somebody else's failed destiny. There is no other way. The internal journey to success is exactly that. It's internal. You remember earlier, I mentioned that pro snowboarder, Eric Jackson. I'm sure a lot of people told him that was the dumbest thing, to chase your dream, to chase snow, to really just fall in love with something that, well, you could get hurt and you're done. And you know what? For him, the risk was worth the reward. And yes, in snowboarding, your career is short, just like a pro football player, just like any other risky sport or risky thing you do. Eventually, there's going to come an event. Eventually, there's going to come something that makes it so you can't continue. And then you got to recreate that vision inside you. That moment for me happened back in, it would have been probably the mid 2000s, pretty close. I would say it would have been about 2010, if I guess. 2010. I had just started riding for Forum Snowboards. Not only Forum Snowboards, one of my other big sponsors was 32 Boots. And 32 Boots was inviting me out to do a lot of photo shoots with them, with other pro riders. And I got invited to Mammoth. And kind of ironic, I'm going to Mammoth next week because Mammoth just got dumped on with almost 10 feet of snow. So I'm going to go ride some POW in Mammoth and revisit those days. But the days in Mammoth that I recall is this. In 2009 or 2010, I'm there with 32 Boots. And, you know, out here in the East Coast, it's always gray and gloomy. But in the West Coast, there's lots of bluebird days, sunny days. And we roll up the first day, we're going to go out on the hill. We're going to film bluebird. 40 some degrees first thing in the morning. Didn't even have a jacket on. And I was just like in a hoodie, 32 Boots hoodie, of course, representing. And we roll up to the park, and right there in front of me is just the most perfect jump I'd ever seen. It was a jump line of 3 jumps going into a couple rails and then a couple bigger jumps at the bottom. And I'm just looking at this jump thinking this thing is perfect. The snow conditions are perfect. Listen to the birds. I got all these other pro riders behind me. I got the team manager of 32 Boots watching me like this is my moment to shine. Again, folks, I'm always wanting to win. That movie, Rad, he always wanted to win. Well, I always wanted to win. So my thought was, all right, I'm going to go first. I'm not going to ask permission. I'm just going to say dropping. And I roll up. But I roll up really fast because I didn't really know how big the jump was. I sort of looked at it and I thought, all right, I'm going to need this much speed. 1 speed check and then I'm good. And I did 1 speed check. But what I failed to realize, it was early in the morning. Although it was warm and although it was sunny, the snowpack was still pretty fast because it was firm from the night before being really cold. And I had way more speed than what I needed for this jump. And there we go. I come off that lip on my toe edge. I push down. I pop into a back 5 cork, perfectly executed. Grab the board, push the nose out. Oh, perfect. I get around to about 360 degrees. And I watch the landing go bye-bye. And I'm still spinning because remember, I was doing a back 5, another 180. But the 360 is where the landing ended. So the rest of it was basically just going out into the stratosphere, was just going right past the landing. And you know what? I knew it was coming. That moment when you see that happen, you just know nothing good is going to come out of this. So you just relax your body because you've done this enough times. You know what this is going to feel like. Maybe in your mind, you're going to catch the tail end of the tranny. It's still going to hurt, but you're going to be okay. But unfortunately, I didn't catch the tail end of the tranny. I caught the flats. And what it felt like as well, I don't know, go to your second story window of your house and just jump. When you hit the ground, that's what it felt like. It was boom. Sorry if I scared you a little bit. And then all of a sudden you come to and you try to get up thinking it's okay, but it's not. You see, I had pain in my lower back. I had pain in my arm. I had deep pain in my ankle and my heel. I didn't know at that moment what had happened. And I got up and I rode down and I felt the pain settling in. I went down to the lodge and I knew what it was. I'd broken my tailbone. I didn't know it yet, but my bicep, I had torn my bicep muscle because that's the arm I put down and took a lot of the absorption. I had bruised my heel so deeply that it turned black the next day as my tailbone turned deep black, and so did my butt cheek. Folks, that injury, although not as bad as other injuries, I've had worse. That injury at that moment, that was it. You see, that was the year that I had got my big break. And that was the year that the first jump I hit with this big break in Mammoth, California, that was it. The internal success, the internal journey had ended right there. I didn't know it yet, but I would at the end of that season after the pain did not go away while I filmed my very last video part in the last video I would ever be in as a pro snowboarder. Do It Right. Check it out. Google Do It Right. That was the last video part. And in that video part, all I can tell you is when you watch Chris Naugle riding in it, that's not Chris Naugle riding. That's a broken ex-pro Chris Naugle riding, because at that moment when I hit the ground, that was it. Career was over. I couldn't win a contest that year. I couldn't get my tricks down that year because the pain was so great every time I landed that I was hopped up on Motrins. I was taped up on every event I rode in, and I was in deep pain. I never recovered from that. That was the end of my career. I continued to ride, but then after I started losing my sponsors, I couldn't compete. Well, I could compete, but I couldn't win, so I stopped competing. Nobody called me anymore to film. It happened quick, folks, and I went into depression. So that internal journey ended right there, but that internal happiness that I had every day I was on my board also ended right there. You see, I had to re-find that internal happiness, just like when you fail, folks. When you have an event, whether it's you that created the event or some outside force or someone else creating the event for you, when you fail, you have to dig deep and you got to pivot. Well, that pivot came 2 years after that event when I got a phone call, weird phone call. My phone rang and it was this guy that I knew that I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why this person was calling me. I asked him up, I'm like, hey, what's up, Pete? And he starts telling me about this opportunity to coach a national snowboard team at this resort called Hollymont. Now, I want you to all know something. In my mind, I'm still a pro snowboarder. Even though I wasn't, I was still in my mind focused on that. And I said, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm not a coach. I'm a rider. So I'm going to pass for now. Thank you for calling. I was above that. You want me to coach? I'm a rider. I'm not a coach. I'm not ready to coach a team. I want to ride. I want to compete. I want to win. 1986, the movie Rad. That's all Crew Jones wanted to do was win, win, win. But after the reality of the situation settled in, I started to think to myself, well, I can get paid to ride. And I'll be on the hill 3 days a week again. I'll be doing what I love, and I'll be doing it while getting paid. And I'll probably make some cool relationships. And then I thought, all right, here's the thing. I'm going to call one of my ex riders that I used to compete with, Chris Perks. He was an amazing rider and he was a good friend. And I said, Chris, I got this opportunity, man. I'm going to start coaching this team. We're going to go to nationals. These kids are going to be winners. We're going to show them the path. We're going to show them mentally and physically how to win. Join me, man. Well, it was a big ask, but he ended up doing it. Chris is still at Hollymont, still building their parks and doing things with this, but that was that pivot. You see, I needed to refine that internal fire, and that internal fire came back when I started coaching and seeing other people win. Now, I wasn't on the podium anymore, but my efforts, my past experience helped these young riders get on that podium. And when I saw them walk up to take that gold at that first nationals at Copper Mountain, the feeling I felt sitting in the crowd, a place I'd never been before in a contest. I was on the podium or behind the scenes waiting to be put on the podium. But now I'm in the regular crowd with all the rest of the people that were just watching, not riding, watching. But that joy I had was so elevated. I'd never even felt this level of joy when I rode, when I was the person standing up there with my board high over my hand or my head, with the bottle of champagne. Well, later, after I was of age, the bottle of champagne in my hand saying, I won. But now I didn't win. My riders, the kids that I coached, were winning, and I felt even more joy. Folks, sometimes that internal journey, that internal fire is going to go out or almost go out, and you're going to need to relight it by pivoting, by finding the new path. I've had to do this over and over again, and Eric Jackson has had to do that in his career over and over again. There was a period of almost 2 years where Eric Jackson barely rode. His fire had almost gone out. He'd lost his passion. And then he decided one day to make a big journey and to spend the entire winter up in northern BC, reinventing himself, refinding himself. Folks, you got to reinvent yourself. You got to refine yourself. Maybe you're on the path that I was back when I was living the dream, but eventually that path comes to an end or slows down, or maybe it doesn't even do anything other than the fire inside you goes out for that original passion. The fire went out for my original passion of BMX when I transitioned that to snowboarding and skateboarding, and that fire still lives on today. And then snowboarding started to burn out, so I transitioned that into surfing, and I traveled and found waves all around the world. And that passion burned heavy, and it still does today. But today, I've transitioned that passion to the business models and to solving other people's problems and to building these companies up to what they are. You see, every one of these is a pivot. Every one of these is an internal journey into the unknown, an internal journey into the places, going to the places that people tell you shouldn't do, that you couldn't do, that you would never, ever succeed at. That's where you belong.